So, hey everybody, it's been a few weeks since my last Instagram TV, and the reason for that is because I really wanted to speak into the hearts of my clients and couples that are dealing with this COVID crisis, and I didn't feel like I was the best expert on this. So today I brought in Chelsy from The Gathering Co., and we're going to be chatting with her a little bit about things that we can do to help during this time, help our clients, and also help ourselves as creatives. So this is Chelsy Ferguson. Her company, The Gathering Co., is based in Raleigh, North Carolina. And Chelsy, just introduce yourself to us. Let us know how you got started with your wedding planning business. Anything you want us to know about you.
Sure. Well, yes, I'm Chelsy. I'm the owner and lead designer here, and our main focus is weddings. Of course, we do other events if that comes across our plate and it seems like the right fit, but mainly weddings from event management to partial to full planning. How I got started, I feel like it's a long story.
That's okay.
I'll give like just the short version, but I really grew up with my whole family being in the event industry. So one of my sisters lives in Wilmington, and she used to be a coordinator. So I kind of got a little background from her, just of seeing her do her passion in weddings. One of my sisters actually opened up a venue, which is where my husband and I got married, and we were the first couple there, and that's really where it confirmed I want to do wedding planning. Our mom just like always had events happening at our house or just like hosting things in the community. So I really got to see the process of what it took my entire life to, pull together an event and who's coming and to craft it around who is coming and what the event is about. So really instilled a sense of community and a sense of just love for people and gathering for a purpose to serve others. So I like to say it was really all along, really just like knitting that love of weddings for me. But I will say when I got to college, I actually fell in love with marketing and loved branding and like just the whole concept that it could be anything that you want it to be. It could be sales, it could be branding, it could be, Instagram, really anything. So I studied that for 4 years and graduated and went straight into a corporate position, and thought my path was actually more of like working to be a CEO of a marketing empire and like all of this other stuff with corporate ladder. And a few years into working within that industry, that during that time I also got married and got to see the event industry a little closer from that, specifically towards weddings, but also just seeing my sister like build up her venue during that time. So, that sparked that thought, and I just was never happy. Like every day going into work was a struggle for me, and not just like, oh, I gotta go to work, but like really, just affecting me emotionally every day. And it got really bad, and I just decided like, okay, I need to just go for this, or I need to be okay with where I'm at right now. Mm-hmm. And luckily, I have a husband who is like super willing to put, that faith into me and was like, let's do it. So I did quit my job and went right into The Gathering Co. I started about 6 months prior to quitting. And I mentioned this in a recent podcast I was on, but like not a lot of people know, I actually started The Gathering Co. to be like a small party planning company, which is
okay,
very interesting now in retrospect.
Yeah.
Like wanted to plan just like showers and like fun little get-togethers, like dinners, and really that was just because my full-time job would not allow me to fully step into what I thought I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I did get my first wedding inquiry through that, and just building out a website that worked and could get my message across. Definitely looked a lot different from where we are now, but that first wedding inquiry is what got me thinking about changing it towards weddings. I just loved the conversation I initially got to have with the bride, and all that took place during that time of planning, just in those initial steps. So I, did my due diligence. I researched, worked weddings, actually worked at a venue before I started the Gathering Co full
Okay.
time. So I really did take my time to like get to know the industry enough to be able to be an expert within my field, at least my section of the field. So yeah, it took off after that. I'm so thankful it did. And, I realized after 6 months, I have to choose between this just being a little side thing. I take a couple weddings on a year, or if I really wanted to jump into this. And
Mm-hmm.
I chose to jump into it. And then I just really worked really hard on styled shoots, working my brand up, investing in my website, investing in who I wanted to be as a company, and really diving into connecting with other vendors so we could learn continuously, which is what we try and do all the time. Even now being a business for, a few years, still looking at continually learning our clients and what's coming next for the industry, so you can always be helpful to people. So I'm so glad to be here. But yeah, that's again long story, but try to make it short for how the
Yeah.
Gathering Co got started.
No, that's awesome. And you mentioned your husband being a big supporter of you, and he is actually an officiant as well. Is that right?
Yes, he is getting his Master's of Divinity and works within our church as a pastoral figure for pastoral counseling. So he actually does a lot, but while he's in school, he works full time as CRM director, and he's also a professor. So him taking time to officiate with the Gathering Co was actually a cool thing that started with a wedding we did for a really good friend of ours, and he really enjoyed the experience. So, dug a little deeper with just what he wanted to do with that and how we could work together, because he's during the week schedule and I work during the week, but also the weekends. And
Yes.
having him at, one or two weddings every couple months is really cool.
Yeah, that's super awesome. Would you say that your own marriage has shaped the way you run your business at all?
Yeah, absolutely. It's still a learning process, but I would say I work a lot, and that's my own fault. But like when you run a business and you want it to grow and you want it to look a certain way, especially with my personality of being just so high strung and like always having to be doing something, um, it took a lot for us to learn. Like, okay, it does take a lot to run a business. Learning together, having those conversations together, so that I could in turn respect our personal life, but also the business. And now that I have employees and an assistant, like how can I still give to them and the business while still giving to us? So it was definitely a lot of conversations that we had to have about scheduling, just being good with time, carving out specific points of our week and our
Mhm.
months to like have for each other. And it's still a learning curve, especially when things like COVID are thrown your way, or you're
Yes.
going to have an incredibly busy fall after it was already incredibly busy. So I think it's a lot
Yes.
of prep and a lot of communication.
Yes.
So it's definitely shaped who I am in the last few years, and it's definitely shaped us together. And in return, has shaped the business, because we've had to put processes in place. I've had to say, okay, I'm going to delegate a little bit more and let go a little bit
Hmm.
more. So that's been a big learning curve for me. But yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So you mentioned COVID, which kind of brings us to
Yeah.
what everybody's talking about right now. I always tell my couples that they should be working with a wedding planner. It takes so much stress off their plate. And
Yeah.
if they weren't convinced before now, I'm hoping that they will be after this situation.
Right.
What role have you played as a wedding planner in a circumstance such as this? How have you been able to walk your clients through this confusing time? What are some of the things that you've been doing?
Yeah, I love this question. I definitely agree. I think just from being a bride before, um, and just the love I see for my clients, I agree that I think having a point person that can take care of you and has the experience level of maybe not dealing with COVID, because all of us have not,
Or
but we
new?
do have the experience of dealing with hard situations and how to navigate those for you and with your vendors. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that we've been able to step in and be a reference for them and just a sounding board and have those personal conversations, because we are completely invested in their day, and we've been with them at, every appointment, if they're full planning, talking to them all the time. But even if they're just event management, we have been with them throughout the whole year in some capacity, from rental appointments to meeting with them to being a reference for them, for other vendors. So it's an honor and it's a need, I think, to step in and be that person on that side, but then to be able to turn around and funnel their communication through just one person, which is us, out to all these other vendors, and promising both sides that we're respecting their feelings. We've worked with both sides multiple times. Clients, we're super emotionally invested in them, and we hear them, and we're going to try and do all we can. But then turning around and communicating that to vendors and saying, we repeatedly work with you and we're in the same boat with having to deal with this. So here's how they're feeling. What can we do for them? So I think the skills of being a mediator is really important, and for you to be able to have that or hire that now that you have the chance, I think is so important, because we are used to dealing with hard conversations if we need to, or negotiating for clients if we need to. We're always looking out to balance both in our job. And I think hiring an expert to do that for you during this time is definitely a need to create a very stress-free, or as best as possible, easy transition with rescheduling.
Yes.
So you don't have to talk to everyone and hear all these different opinions. You're really with one trustworthy person who you trust to communicate with and for you.
So you're saying that even if they hadn't been working with a wedding planner before this, do you think it would be smart for them to start working with somebody as they're working on postponing?
I do think that. I mean, obviously that's a personal choice, like definitely not pushing anyone that cannot, afford that, or even just rope that into their brain space right now to hire someone. But I would say it's an investment that would return for you. I think just if you hire a planner that you trust and you interview them and you really feel like they can communicate for you well, and I always say, like, trust and your natural vibing with each other is so important, because you don't want them to be interpreting your words, your personality, and then putting it out in a different way. So if you do want to hire someone right now, I think you will then in turn have an outcome that you're very happy with. I think the return is worth the investment in a coordinator. And it doesn't have to be a planner. You can hire a coordinator who's obviously more than willing to help with you with your transition, and then show up for you for event management a few months down the road and celebrate all the hard work that you just put in. So I definitely think it's helpful. It really helps them be able to focus on their work if they have kids at home, or they're just trying to make it through this like we all are. You have a person who you can just vent to, tell them what you want, your end goals, and they can help with a vendor, make that happen with vendors they know and are dear to.
For sure.
I agree.
So I have had almost 10 weddings in April and May that are postponing. What would you say is the number one piece of advice you could offer to couples that have to postpone their April or May wedding date?
Yeah, so I'm going to speak just from a point of clients that obviously have a planner and coordinator, and what we've been doing for really any and all of our clients. I would give advice to first start with your venue and your coordinator. Not to say you have to choose dates that they're immediately available, like for your coordinator, but that starts at the top where you need your location, and you have that person who's going to communicate that to all your vendors. So I would just say, please, please, please start with your venue and your coordinator. It really helps the client not be confused about all these different opinions and processes. It really helps you stick with one very fluid and just easygoing process. Immediately after we choose a couple dates with them, we will then start to send that out to all your vendors, again, just funneling through one person, and we can guide the conversation from there, always taking it back to the client to then come to an agreement where hopefully everyone is transitioning to a new date. But my second piece of advice is, if you haven't already rescheduled or you are looking to reschedule, like you said, pick, a couple of dates. Don't maybe pick just one date, and be open-minded about other couples that are dealing with this too, and that your vendor team is really, really trying to make this about you and protect what they can provide at the same time. So we don't, we would hate for other venues or vendors to not even be in business by the time your wedding comes around. So just having like a grace in your communication, grace in the date you choose, and that we truly are all trying to work towards you having your wedding day with all the vendors that you booked, so it can truly feel like it's the same day on a different date.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice up to this point of just what we've seen the last couple months.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. So when we're looking beyond the April and May dates and looking into June and July, and we're kind of in this weird gray area, we don't know how long this is going to last for. We have no idea if our June and July weddings will need to worry about rescheduling. What are your thoughts on that when couples aren't sure if they should postpone now or if they should wait it out until we know for sure?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like, with us all going through this for the first time, it's definitely been a lot of give and take and a lot of conversation. And I think it's a case-to-case basis at the bottom line is, if you have had a ton of things, we have a ton of traveling guests coming in, I would first look at your guest count and what your situation is, because obviously there's a lot of prep for June weddings where you might have a ton of flights coming in that may not be available until the last minute. So one thing that I actually was advised to do and has been a great turnout for my clients is, if you're feeling nervous and you're in that June or July bracket, maybe you send out like a Google form or an email to all of your guests just saying, we are aware of the situation, we love you, and we want to celebrate with you, but your safety is our first priority. So how are you feeling about the wedding? And not allowing it to be this like overpour of opinions, but maybe attach a form to that that's just like a three options with how they're feeling. Like, we're absolutely coming if we're able to, we're feeling a little nervous, or we won't be there. And then, of course, backing that up with putting something on your website that we've come up with, and it's more of a get to know your vendors through this page. So just creating like prepping moments for this while you're considering before you pull the trigger on that, really weighing your guests and how they're feeling. And I think putting that out there, if you're really and truly on the fence, will give you enough feedback to say, okay, my guests are confident, 80%, we're going to move forward with this thing unless we absolutely cannot. So I will say I have a lot of brides on that side where they're like, we're going to ride this out. We've actually worked with calligraphists to craft a save the date or moving the date for them. So there is a lot of like things that we've been able to calm them with and calm that fear by saying, we've done it. We've rescheduled. If we have to, we can. We don't want you to lose out on your dream date if you don't have to. Right. So we are hoping to hold our summer brides, but of course, if your circumstance says otherwise and you've pulled your guest, then we then start rolling into that rescheduling time where we look at dates, we hold your dates. So yeah, I would say that's like the biggest thing to first look at is your situation, your guest. And then secondly was that vendor page I was talking about. And we've actually created like just this little blurb where you can put your caterer and your bartender, your coordinator, your venue, and then beside it, you can say a little bit about them and what they've been doing for COVID.
Okay.
So I know some vendors have even worked small weddings, or right when this started, they worked weddings where they had to take extensive precautions, and you could put what they've done for that in there just to create that safety net around your guests and create safety for you, even just reading it, so that you instill trust if they were to come still in June or July, that they have experience and they're taking safety precautions to assist your wedding day and making sure they feel safe.
Yes.
So I would say that to implement that piece with your guest and maybe refer them to that page.
Yeah.
So those are our first two things. And then thirdly, go ahead and get a date together that you'd be okay rescheduling to. We're definitely advising, even though we're not advising to immediately reschedule, we are advising. I think it would make them feel better, make you feel better if we went ahead and looked at dates. And I'm more than happy to put a soft hold on that date. Of course, I will address it with you if we ended up having an inquiry for that, or we had to reschedule a date that was before you. But at least having a date that you would be happy and okay with, so that the negotiation part of that is out of the way.
Yeah.
And we can just jump right on that if the time comes.
Yeah. I love all that. That's perfect.
That makes sense.
Yes, it really does. I think those
Okay,
are
good.
great ideas for them to be thinking about.
Awesome.
So as you think beyond this situation, because we all know it will end one day, we will see the end of this darkness. And life will return somewhat to normal, but obviously things will have changed. How do you feel this whole situation has changed the way you approach your future couples? Do you think that it will alter any advice that you give them or anything that you do in your business?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot through this.
Yeah, I think we all have.
Yes. So I think first I would just like to address vendors. We have greatly changed our contracts for like what to prep for a pandemic in the future, if that were to ever happen again, or if we would see this rise again ever in a different way. So I would just advise vendors to look at your contracts and your cancellation policies and your rescheduling policies and see if there's any holes in that, where if a couple like way down the line who should not even be thinking about rescheduling right now maybe like jumps on that and tries to get in on the rescheduling loop, you have that to look to and refer to then answer them in a very honest way and to protect the client as well. So we are now walking them through that, so that I think everyone that's booking right now is thinking about, what if this happened to my wedding? So we've actually taken a lot more time to talk with our clients through that. And I think they really appreciate that. We've booked a couple more weddings for the end of this year and early next year, and just walking them through how we've tackled the situation. And it's made us stronger planners, and our relationships with the vendors that are working on your wedding day are stronger now. And we walk them through cancellation and reschedule and how we've done that and what the contract means for them and what it means for us. And so I think that process and just being super open has really, I've seen really impact future bookings and future clients, because whether they're a year and a half from now, it's probably running across their mind, like, what if
everybody's still thinking about it?
Yeah. And so I think that truly shows, like, even though this will end and not all these weddings would be affected, it's still a point, and I think an opportunity for you to connect with your clients on a deeper level, and for them to appreciate your wisdom and just you thinking about them, whether they're new or someone who booked for later, taking that extra step and walking them through what this looks like and walking them through how this could affect them. But, we're hopeful it doesn't, but we would be ready to help them. So yeah, I think it's definitely opened up an opportunity for us to get closer to our clients, but also to make sure we're aware that they're probably feeling this, even though they know they're not going to be affected. Fear is such a contagious thing. And so I think addressing that right away is something that we're going to see a need for.
Yes. I love that so much.
Absolutely.
How can other vendors be helping their couples during this time? I know you kind of touched on that a little bit. And I think that what you just said was really important, just taking the time to really walk through with them, one, their contract, but also just everything that we're doing to be thinking about
Yeah.
them. Is there anything that you want to add to other vendors in regards to them helping their couples during this time?
Yeah, I would kind of go back to what I just said about openly talking with them, is especially if somebody reach out. I have to remind myself of this too, but if someone reaches out and they're like a November wedding and they're fearful, not to be quick to just be like, oh, I'm done with that. Like, don't even worry, but
Hmm.
like taking the time to really address their fears. Like if it was your important day or you were hosting a workshop and it was in jeopardy, and addressing them, even though you're not rescheduling it, I think it would create miles of appreciation just for you to take that time to explain why they should not be fearful at this point.
Yes.
Um, and then I say vendor to vendor, and this immediately affects your client, I think, is going back to what we appreciate, and what we've seen work best for clients that are needing to reschedule or thinking about a postponement date, is not being the one to instill the fear into the client and saying, oh my gosh, I think you're going to need to reschedule. We had that actually happen to us. We were on we were on that line of like reaching out to them saying like, I think we do need to start thinking about a date. But they had gotten a call from one of their other vendors that was like basically saying, we've had all of our weddings rescheduled, we need to reschedule yours. And that they, have admitted that's what sparked that like fear of like, we need to get going.
Yeah.
So I think I would just say, make sure your clients feel calm. The reschedule is possible. Like this is all a process. We're going to get through it. No need for like panic and fear.
Hmm.
That makes it so much worse. So please instill like peace and wisdom into your clients instead of fear and panic.
Yes.
And then try and reach out to the coordinator first if they have one, because they're going to end up being the leader of the email. They're going to send out the big things for all of the vendors. So if you can help it, not to say your relationship with the client is not as important at all, like that, I think it is just as important, but maybe talking with the vendors first
Yeah.
instead of going to clients first, so we can all be on the same page and like move forward in that same step for them.
Yes.
I think would be my top three things
Yes.
for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I love how you said that we need to instill that peace in them because they're looking to us as experts and as the leaders in the industry. Like they've never planned a wedding before, but we've been through it several times.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're
And
looking for that wisdom in us. So I really, really like what you said there about that.
exactly. I'm glad that you agree. I think it's so easy for us to get panicked sometimes, and we all have those moments where we're just like, I can't do this anymore. But like, have your moment, maybe connect with other vendors, and then bring back more knowledge, more peace to your clients, and just say, here's the steps. We have like a
Hmm.
5-step process we do. We're going to get through all these with you, and then you're going to have a wedding. It's going to be awesome.
Yep.
And keeping your vendors involved in that. So I
Yeah.
think that's such a better approach than like, what we have encountered just a couple times of like
Yeah.
our kids come to us panicked because of some other conversation that they've had. And that's the last thing, we want for ourselves
Yeah.
and for them. So
For sure.
yeah.
So lastly, if we think about other vendors and other creatives during this time, how can we, keep the lights on our business, so to speak, during this time? How can we let everybody know that we're still open, we're still operating as well as we can while everything else is shut down? How do we press forward during this time?
Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of vendors, and I needed to hear this, but I think we have seen kind of a lull in inquiries or like official bookings just because the unknown scares people.
Hmm.
And they're like, I don't really want to hire someone right now and I don't know what's going on with my job and everything like that. So I think looking at the outlets that you already use for your branding and revving those up a little bit. So Social media I still believe in is like such a huge platform, and people really do look at that, even if they reach out to you in a different way. But maybe on your welcome page on your website, or you have a link, or like at the top you have COVID-19, and like within that you say, just directly address the problem. It's like, hey, right now I know we're all in the unknown. We are looking forward to a bright future, and we would love to still chat with you and see what would work for you during this time, whether it's payment plans or looking to hold your date and then move forward later once this calms down. So I think just directly addressing it on your website and having a very easily seen tab or something that they can get to easily. And then Instagram, Facebook, things like that, relatable posts where you're like, we're still open and booking. Please feel free to contact us to talk through what you're looking to do.
Yeah.
So I think still trying to move forward like normal, but also maybe having a couple of outlets that you're okay with sharing the direct feelings with everyone about what's going on.
Yes, I love that. Just addressing it, not hiding behind it, not pretending like it's not happening, and just letting them know you're aware. Yeah.
Exactly. I think we do need to figure out a bridge point where like we're over here like, oh, okay, I would really like to see more of that flow of inquiries coming in. And then the clients are over there saying like, we're scared. We want to, but we can't, or we don't want to right now. We don't know. Yeah. So like trying to create a place where that bridge can meet, I think is really great. So we have one on our website, like right next to booking, so that they can go to that. And then we've been trying to stay active on Instagram and not overkilling and every post being about COVID, because I think it's so important to address it on Instagram and address it on Facebook and whatnot, but to also throw in your personality and your brand still, so that they can, still get that from what they're looking at.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Well, Chelsy, this has been great. I feel like you've offered a ton of insight and given me a lot of great ideas. And so I just wanted to ask, is there anything else, anything that we missed, or just any last minute advice that you want either just anybody listening or couples or clients to know?
Yeah, I think at the end of all of this, I would say watch out for each other and put your best foot forward for every single email you're sending to your clients and every single call. And if you can, maybe even make time for phone calls for all your clients that are rescheduling or have that fear, so that you guys can just bond together a little bit more. And even if it's a venting call and nothing comes of it, it's still moments of connection. So yeah, I think whether it's moments of connection with vendors or clients, just to really take a step back and try and see those opportunities.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chelsy. Thank you for taking time with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I hope this was helpful for couples and creatives alike. I hope that it gives you some ideas and also just gives you a little bit of peace that we're all in this together and that we're all trying to figure out the best way to move forward. So if you know anybody that this would be helpful for, feel free to tag them in the video below. Know that us vendors, we are on your team. We still want you to have the day you've been dreaming of, even if it's on a different date. I hope everybody is staying healthy and well and safe, and that we are able to kick this virus to the curb quicker, sooner rather than later. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll chat again soon.